Hey everyone, this is Exploring Fiction, and welcome back to another video. So, just a big warning here, there will be spoilers ahead for A Storm of Swords, Book 3 in A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. So, if you haven't read it yet, read it, and then come back to this video. As you can tell from the thumbnail and title of this video, I just read A Storm of Swords, Book 3 in A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin for the first time. These are my thoughts. Wow. In a series that so far has exceeded my lofty expectations, this book blew me away more than any other. I loved every single second of it. I was absolutely stunned by this book in the best way possible. There was so much going on, and every chapter of every point of view had so much to offer in either or both the character and plot department. So if you've watched the previous videos in this series, you'll know how much I love the setting and world building, so I won't even waste time going over that again. Instead, let's get right into my favorite and least favorite characters. And to start off with favorite characters, my first one is Robb Stark. Again, if you've seen my other videos, you knew this was coming. His struggle as a young man trying to fill the shoes of a king is compelling, and when he was suddenly killed at the Red Wedding, it was a tragic end to a great character. Another favorite was Jon Snow. Jon Snow is really coming into his own as a character now, and he's developed so much. Admittedly, I thought he would spend the entire book with the wildlings, but either way, watching him wrestle with issues of loyalty, duty, and leadership made him really stand out in this book. Tyrion Lannister was another favorite. He's both conniving and endearing at the same time, and he's definitely still the most fun character to read. He always has something up his sleeve, but he has a lot of heart for those he truly cares about. Yet another Stark on my list of favorite characters, Arya Stark. Sure, she might be a young girl in way over her head, but she's tough and resourceful for a highborn child. Watching her gain independence, only to have it be snatched away time and time again, is gut-wrenching, but she gets stronger every time, and I can't help but admire her character and her character's progression. Another character who recently became a favorite was Brienne of Tarth. In this book, she really demonstrated how good of a person she is. While she doesn't have superb looks, which can get you very far in Westeros, she demonstrates loyalty to a fault, as well as integrity and bravery. This made me sympathize with her when she was in trouble and cheer for her when she wasn't. And finally, to top off my list of favorite characters, is someone I'd never thought I'd put on this list. And I'm surprised that I am at all. Jaime Lannister. I'll admit, he's a character I didn't even want to like from the beginning. After all, he's an incestuous, king-slaying, foul-mouthed scoundrel. And in his first chapter, he starts right away with belittling Brienne, someone who is the least worthy of harsh words. But as the story went on, I couldn't help but like Jaime more and more. Yeah, he's a terrible person, but as a character, he's so compelling. It was a stroke of genius by Martin to take away the one thing that made Jaime Lannister better than his peers, his sword hand. That alone forced him to become more vulnerable and really gave him a reality check that he wasn't actually invincible. It turned his world upside down, and I couldn't help but feel bad for him at times and root for him at others. I was really surprised by Jaime Lannister's character development and how much I ended up liking him by the end of this book. Now, let's pivot and talk about my least favorite characters, which number far greater than in previous videos. Usually I only have one or two, but in this one I have more. First, Joffrey Baratheon, a mainstay on this list. About 2/3 of the way through the book, I was debating not even putting him on here, but the way he acted toward Tyrion at his wedding assured me that he's still bad. I'm kinda glad his character is now gone going forward. Another least favorite character, Cersei Lannister. Pretty self-explanatory, as she's a cunning and wicked queen who is a terrible and manipulative person. Next up, Lord Walder Frey. He's on this list solely because of the Red Wedding. Yeah, he was kinda already insufferable, but he killed Robb, my favorite character, in a backstabbing way, and thus I couldn't forgive him. Another least favorite is Melisandre. She's just creepy and really overzealous, and I wouldn't mind her if not for her hold over Stannis. Yeah, I guess by the end of the book, the two of them may be doing the right thing, but Aemon and Sam had their doubts. And I don't know. Melisandre, she's one of my least favorite for now. And I just really don't like the hold she has over Stannis, like I said. Because Stannis was one of my favorites in A Clash of Kings. But he has a lot of flaws. And I think Melisandre only amplifies those. Two more of my least favorites are Janos Slynt and Sir Alliser Thorne. They had it out for Jon Snow for no good reason. And since Jon Snow is one of my favorites, that made these two some of my least favorites. Next up, Lisa Arryn. Sure, she wasn't in this book till the near end, but the impression she left wasn't good. I didn't really like her in the first book either. She seemed shrill and cold, and that was just confirmed here. The way she treated Sansa left a poor taste in my mouth. And finally, the last character on my least favorite list, Catelyn Stark. I can't believe I have her here, as I liked her a lot in the first book especially. But my eyes really opened to her selfishness and self-pity in this book. She released Jaime Lannister, Robb's biggest bargaining chip, for the slim hope of getting her daughters back. She walked around basically desensitized to the outside world, and she did nothing to stop the death of her oldest son. Yeah, she's been through a lot and thinks she lost everything, but she was such a dreary character to be around, I really could not take it by the end. And now that I've talked about my best and worst characters from the book, I want to take some time to talk about the plot. This is something I think I lacked a bit in my videos about the other A Song of Ice and Fire books, because I would only cover my favorite characters, kind of the world building / setting, and then the POVs ranked, which I'll do in this video too. But looking back, I kind of wish I had covered more of my thoughts on the plot, so that's what I'm going to do here in this video today. And there's just so much to process and talk about here. So first, I'll start with the Robb / Catelyn story and the Red Wedding. Since it's almost impossible to avoid Game of Thrones spoilers in 2023, I had heard of the Red Wedding before. However, I didn't know who was involved or who died. I just knew a lot of people died in general. And man, when I found out it was Robb, I wasn't happy. I figured he wouldn't make it much longer. But the way he went out as a victim of scheming between Walder Frey, Tywin Lannister, and Roose Bolton just felt dark. I'm still curious as to what will happen to Edmure Tully, and if Great John Umber is still alive or not. Those are the big questions I took away after the Red Wedding. Considering Bran's storyline, I thought it was the most boring since there wasn't a lot of interaction, but I'm excited to see where it goes, but it definitely did the least for me in this particular book. Tyrion's storyline with the trial and the Red Viper versus the Mountain was intense, and at the end of the book, when he killed Tywin, and I'm assuming Shae, I was genuinely shocked. I mean, that was a great turn of events, and I'm really invested going forward. Two main things stood out about Sansa's storyline to me. The Queen of Thorns is a badass, and Littlefinger may be the most manipulative person in Westeros. Finding out the Queen of Thorns was the one who killed Joffrey indirectly was a shock, but also not, considering her meeting previous with Sansa. You know, I didn't know what was going to come out of that, and boy, it did not disappoint. As a side note, I laughed aloud at the recurring use of the bear and the maiden fair in this book, in both comedic and serious scenes. It's hard to write comedy, I feel like, in books, because comedy, especially in movies and shows and visual mediums, you get a lot of cues from what you can see, and obviously you can't see anything while reading, you have to imagine it. But the comedy in this book, I feel as though I was with the characters in knowing that it was a jokey song, and I laughed whenever it was used. I thought Martin executed that really well. The other great thing about Sansa's story was finding out Littlefinger and Lisa Arryn killed Jon Arryn. This throws a wrench in everything, because Eddard Stark and many others died believing Cersei killed Jon Arryn for finding out about her incest with Jaime. Knowing it wasn't her throws everything off. And I don't know if this will have bigger implications going forward, but just that revelation alone kind of rocked my world for a second there. Sam Tarly had a pretty good story, and I enjoyed watching him grow braver. Seeing Lord Commander Mormont die was tough, though. concerning Arya Stark's plotline, though not too important as far as worldwide implications go, it was fun to follow, especially interacting with Beric Dondarrion and his unique band of outlaws after all this time hearing about them. They were a fun bunch to read about, I will say. Daenerys' chapters were fun to read too, but I just can't wait to see what she does when she finally comes to Westeros. I also want to see what will happen to Jorah Mormont. He's another character I'm getting more invested in as time goes on. And of course, I have to talk about Jon Snow's plotline. From being a spy amongst wildlings, to fighting at the Wall, to finally being elected new Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, it was all so inspiring, and I'm glad he's finally getting good things coming his way. He was so compelling to follow because of his conflicts and growth, and his plotline is the one I'm looking forward to in the next books. Now, of course I didn't cover all the plotlines there, but now it's time to get into my point of view character ranking portion of the video. If you haven't seen my previous videos, this is where I rank the POV characters based on how much I enjoyed their chapters and segments. So, let's get right into it. At number 12, Chet. The prologue character, Chet wasn't a good character, as he was debating mutiny against the Lord Commander Mormont, and there just wasn't much substance here. Obviously, the prologue character usually ends up in the last spot, and that's what happened again here. Number 11, Merritt Frey. He ranks slightly higher as the epilogue character because of the revelation that Catelyn Stark is still alive, or at least kind of alive. Number 10, Bran Stark. I like Bran as a character, but like I said before, he just didn't interact with a lot of people in this book, and he wasn't doing as interesting of things as many other point of view characters. At number 9, Daenerys Targaryen. Her chapters were fun to read as she fought her way across some of the free cities, but again, aside from the conflict with Jorah and the return of Barristan Selmy, which I was hoping would happen, Daenerys' story got a tiny bit repetitive for me personally. Moving on to number 8, Sansa Stark. There was a lot to like here, from the meeting with the Tyrell women to the revelations at the Vale and interactions with Littlefinger. It's just that sometimes Sansa is a little too innocent and helpless for me to enjoy her chapters more. If she was able to stand up for herself like Arya, I would enjoy her as a POV character slightly better. And I understand that's just her characterization being kind of an innocent type, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not for me as much as some of the other characters, that's all. Number 7, Catelyn Stark. I love Robb Stark, but he can only prop up Catelyn so far. Catelyn Stark was a dismal character to read, but I have her ranked this high because I got to follow my favorite character, Robb. Coming in at number 6, Davos Seaworth. The only peek into the life of Stannis in this book. I love Davos in his own right this time around. He's a noble guy, and I thought things would end up worse for him. I'm so glad Stannis ended up heeding his advice. Number 5, Samwell Tarly. Sam's an easy character to like and feel for, since he's a self-admitted coward. He really proved himself in this book, though. He survived wildlings, others, and even aided Jon Snow in getting elected Lord Commander, and Bran Stark into crossing beyond the Wall. So he did a lot of important things. He's an easy character to sympathize with for a lot of people, and so I liked him a lot in this book. Coming in at number 4, Tyrion Lannister. Like I said earlier, Tyrion is the perfect mix of heart and wit. His marriage to Sansa really got me to see his good side, and the trial and battle for his fate was thrilling. Not to mention, he killed his evil father, which no one expected. Coming in at number 3, Arya Stark. I wanted to put her higher, I just can't justify it. Still, Arya was so fun to follow in this book. Putting her with Beric's band of outlaws was great, as they all had unique traits and quirks of their own, and Arya is such an inspiring and unrelenting character. Her journey with the Hound was interesting, but I can't wait to see what she does next, now that she really has no home or family to go back to. Number 2, Jaime Lannister. I've really already said all I wanted to concerning Jaime, but to reiterate, He's a character I didn't want to like, but couldn't help but like in the end. He's a bad man who loses so much, he ends up showing a different side to him, and his vulnerability and newfound insecurity made him a great character to read. And coming in at the top spot, Jon Snow. There could be no other answer. Jon Snow has skyrocketed for me. His journey and what he dealt with the entire way was incredible. He started off with the Wildlings, where he went undercover but had to question his own belief at times and break his vows to not betray his true standing. Then he returned to the Wall and grew into a leader when the Night's Watch needed one most. He really grew up from there, and it was so fitting for him to become the new commander of the Watch. I only hope he continues to develop like he did in this book. And so, overall, A Storm of Swords was a wild thrill ride, and it's one of my favorite books of all time. I don't know if the next books can top it, and I don't expect them to either. I'm just trying to soak in how good this book was. So, in other words, I loved it. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment below, discussing this book. I'd love to discuss it with you. You guys have been really awesome about having discussions about this great series in the comments of my previous videos. So just keep it up. I'd love to talk about it. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new here. I'd love to have you. And like always, I will see you next time.